Okay, great. Well, I'd like to welcome you all to the latest edition of Titan Talk. Today we are joined by Scale Computing, and it's our first attempt at a verticalized webinar, and we're looking at the education sector today. So you'll be joining us today because you're either dealing with schools, multi-academy trusts, colleges, or universities, and we're just going to look to show you how we've overcome some challenges in this vertical, and potentially give you some angles to go away and potentially gain some extra traction with your customers, or hopefully you might learn something new that you don't already know about Scale today too. I'm joined by Gary Lynch, who's the Regional Sales Manager of Scale Computing, and Ian Smith, who's the EMEA Technical and Alliances Director. So an agenda for today. Obviously, we know it's end of quarter, and especially for the education sector, it's also end of financial year. So we really do appreciate you taking the time today to come on this and learn a bit more. And obviously, end of financial year means a lot of budget burning. But what it will also mean as well is the new budgets for the sector are going to be released within the coming months, and we're going to show you 3 case studies today, which will show you some of the traditional problems that education have around virtualization, licensing typically, and just how we overcame that with HC3 platform. I'd also encourage everyone to look at Tech Validate as well. There's over 600 Scale Computing case studies on there across many other verticals as well, but it's a really good platform to use as to kind of back up your conversations with your customers. So who are Titan Data Solutions? Well, we are a data-centric distributor with solutions that can help manage, store, manage and secure your customers' data. We can help your customers handle ever-increasing data growth. We mitigate cybersecurity risks and reducing overall IT infrastructure costs. What we are typically seeing across the board, but specifically in education at the moment, we've got a lot of small IT teams under immense pressure. Unstructured data is a problem for probably 95% of organizations at the moment. 90% of all data has been created in the last 2 years, and there is a bit of a skills gap. So the complexities of having a multi-tiered approach or a multi-vendor strategy is what we see most often. And I think now's the point where people are paying so much money in licensing for server, licensing for virtualization. We've got an opportunity to talk you through some examples of what we've encountered in the industry, and how we can potentially help shape your conversations over the next few weeks and months. So I'd like to hand over to Gary Lynch, who will give you an update on who Scale are, what they've been up to, and also just go over some 3 of those case studies that I referenced at the start. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Morning, everyone. My name's Gary Lynch. I'm the Regional Sales Manager for the UK and Ireland for Scale Computing. And as Steve's mentioned, we're going to talk to you about how you can increase your revenues by selling into the education sector, whether that be schools, colleges, or universities. So I'll give you a brief overview of who Scale are. Then I'll talk through a couple of case studies that we've got in that sector, and just give you a few reasons why they were interested in Scale and why they ended up moving over to Scale from their current environment. Give you a quick overview of the proposition itself, and then I'll get Ian Smith, who's our Senior Director for Sales Engineering and Alliances, to give you just a quick demo, just to show you how easy it is to actually use the platform and manage it, but also to implement it as well. So if we just go through who Scale are. So the company is probably one of the best kept secrets in the IT marketplace, to be honest with you. We've been around since 2008, very much focused around the SME and mid-market space. We have lots of verticals that we do very well in, of which education is one of those. And the reason behind that is some of the patents that we have in the technology. Very much the DNA of the organization is to radically simplify management, but by also providing a highly available solution with comprehensive support that enables customers to focus more on their applications than having to manage their IT infrastructure day to day. As Steve mentioned, we've got lots and lots of case studies in lots of vertical marketplaces, over 600. You can also look at Gartner Insight peers and also TrustRadius to get comments from customers who are using it and the reasons they actually chose Scale. There's plenty of systems out there globally at the moment. So we've got, it says they're 10,000 plus, it's probably up to about 12,000 at the moment. And one of the key reasons they actually buy into the Scale ethos is one of the reasons why we've got an NPS score of 91. Now, this is a score that's independently validated, and it's geared around how customers view vendors in the marketplace. So anybody who has a score of 60 and above are seen as really good vendors within that marketplace. Scale have averaged around about the 90 mark for the last 2 years. So as you can see by that, we're very well liked by the customers that are using Scale, and they say some very nice things about us. A lot of that is down to the way that we actually support those customers, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail later on. So our headquarters are in Indianapolis. We do a lot of software development over in California, where we have an office, and we're strongly represented in the EMEA region as well. So our EMEA headquarters are in the Netherlands, and we've got offices in the UK as well. So as you can see from the screen there, we've got a number of technology partners who we work closely with. So on the hardware side, we've got Lenovo and Intel. We work with Google from a disaster recovery as a service point of view into their cloud. And then if you're looking for, certainly for data retention from a long-term point of view, we work with most of the larger backup vendors, but we have a very close tie-up with Acronis in that you're able to use agentless support on our platform, and that's because the integration has been put in place for Acronis. As with a lot of people in the marketplace today, they've been looking at remote working and VDI, and we have 2 tie-ups with a couple of organizations who are heavily entrenched in that marketplace, and that's Parallels and LeoStream. So again, if you've got any customers that are interested in home working or VDI, then again, the Scale platform is perfect for that kind of environment as well. So just looking from a company point of view, some of the organizations that we actually work with, specifically around education. So lots of case studies in the US, establishments like Auburn University and Triton School Corporation, and then there are quite a few in the UK as well and dotted around the globe. I'll go into them in a bit more detail when I talk through some of the case studies. But as you can see from that screen there are lots of larger organizations and lots of smaller organizations as well. And as I say, the platform is really built to be able to scale out and grow as your company grows. So again, when you're selling to education establishments, they only need to buy what they require today. because it's very easy to actually scale out using the scale computing proposition. So if we look at a couple of case studies then of organizations that have actually decided to go with scale. One of those is Swain Park School. So again, looking at the challenging situation that they had, very high licensing fees, combined with trying to reduce their IT budget. They had a legacy VMware and Hitachi environment that was going end of life. And more key, which we found with a lot of organizations, is that they had limited IT staff to manage and maintain their IT infrastructure. So what were they looking for? They were looking for a much easier way of implementing a solution that was very easy to manage, that was future-proof, that they could actually scale as and when they required it to do so. They needed very little or zero downtime. And obviously, like with lots of educational establishments, they're working within very tight budgets. So what did they end up doing? So they ended up buying a HC3 4000 cluster. They're looking to implement a secondary cluster later on for replication and DR. And again, one of the reasons that they ended up purchasing scale was around having no VMware licenses to pay for, in that the hypervisor license is built into the platform, so there are no extra licenses. Their power consumption was giving them cost savings. The ability to easily implement, manage, and scale that environment, making it future-proof for them. And the simplified management, which again I'll talk about later on. And I won't read through the comments that are made by Dan there, but you can all read that as well. Very, very positive for how customers in the education space are looking at scale computing. So if we then look at Stoke Park School, again, very similar situation in that they had an aging virtualization infrastructure. They were quite worried about the VMware license costs that they were going to incur coming up. They needed additional storage capacity and a very small IT team. So again, having an environment or a solution that gave them highly available VMs, a simple to use system, and a solution that could actually scale as the school grows, then that was key to what they were doing. And like with any organization, it needs to be affordable as well. So again, data center in a box using the HC3 platform, very easy to manage. It allows them to fail over VMs in a high availability environment. So again, this is all done automatically. And having no extra licensing costs is again another key for them, as David Wells actually mentions there in his statement. And quite key is the scalability. So if we look at just a third one, and then I'll go on to talk about the proposition itself. St. Richard's Catholic College, long-standing customer of scale. They love the solution, and the reason they bought was, again, they were looking for something to replace an aging legacy solution that they had. They were transitioning to digital learning, and they were experiencing some performance bottlenecks within the current environment that they had. Very much a lack of reliability and quite poor performance. So they needed a solution that was both cost effective from a CapEx and OpEx point of view. It had to be scalable to meet the future needs of the college, and very simple to deploy, because again, with a lot of these schools and colleges, the IT teams are quite small, and they're overworked in what they're doing already. So anything that they can implement that will ease the amount of time they're having to do from a management and administration point of view is quite key to those environments. Reducing power and cooling is key with a lot of organizations, and supporting a zero infrastructure downtime is key to what they're all doing. They'd also just implemented a new 10 gigabit fiber network, and we're looking to make the most of that in the solution that they're actually going to choose. So again, another HC3 cluster that they bought. They actually purchased a second cluster for their DR environment, and were able to replicate between the two. And some of the key factors for their success criteria was that they ended up reducing costs by about 40%. What's really key to them is that they were actually up and running they were actually up and running in the first day, but the whole solution was up and running with everything working within 3 days. Very quick to log on and manage the solution, and they got high availability and automatic failover, which is key to what they'd not received with their previous solution. They were able to reduce the rack space, which obviously meant they were reducing the power and cooling, and it reduced the footprint by about 300%, which again, a lot of these items you'll come across quite a lot when you're talking to education organizations. Excuse me. And you can see there Mark Lane is more than happy with the solution that he's actually received from Scale and the support he's got. So if we look at how we see hyperconverged in the marketplace, so this would be our definition. So it's the integration of compute, storage and virtualization layers of the infrastructure into a single solution architecture. And that will give you a H3 solution, which is scalable, simple and highly available. So this would be a typical infrastructure that we see when we're talking to a lot of new customers. Typical 3-tier architecture with your virtualization layer at the top, some kind of server farm in the middle, and then either a SAN or NAS or some kind of storage architecture down below there, all being run separately, being managed separately, quite complex, and it's really trying to move people into an environment that is a lot simpler to manage by having all of those 3 items in one single environment that is managed by one single pane of glass. So a lot of people are talking about hyperconverged at the moment, and a lot of organizations are actually selling hyperconverged technologies. Where Scale are a bit different than other organizations you may be aware of is that we don't use a virtual storage appliance. So what that means is that you're not having to manage the storage separately. What it also means is because HC3, which is the Scale Computing version of our hyperconverged software, has been written from the ground up, we're able to fit that into a very small part of the overall solution. So as you can see on the left, anything from 96 to 300 gigabytes of RAM and 12 cores is actually consumed just by the virtual SAN appliances within those environments. If you look on the right, then we're actually using less than 12 gigabytes of RAM to actually run and process the operating system. Now, what that means to a customer is that they're able to use more of those resources to actually run their applications, which is what it's key for. So they're not actually paying for resources that are being used by the actual operating system. Or you could actually fit a lot more of those resources into our environment. So as I say, the DNA of the company is very much around simplicity, and these are some of the pillars that we actually used when we were designing the solution. So simplicity, so a unified management solution, a Appliances come pre-configured, so again, very easy to implement and deploy in less than an hour. Highly available, so we have backup and replication built into the solution from a SnapTop technology that we actually use. We also have self-healing built into the solution. So again, in a 3-node cluster, if one of the nodes actually goes down, then the software will actually move the VMs that are on that node to one of the other nodes. More importantly, when the node actually comes back up, the software will be aware of what's going on and will then automatically move those VMs back onto the node that has now rejoined the cluster. So again, it's very low touch from an administration point of view. But again, certainly in the education space, where there are very few people within the IT teams, it's ideal because they're not having to manage the infrastructure on a day-to-day basis. Scalability is quite key, as you can imagine from the name of the company. So we can go from a single node, so where you may have a remote site that has just got quite a few resources needed, you can have a single node on site. However, that does need to replicate back to some form of cluster from a scale point of view. Our high availability clusters start at 3 nodes because we use M+1 technology within that. But from that, you can actually scale out, add in nodes to that environment as and when you need it. One of the neat things that we have within the solution portfolio is that you don't need to replicate or add nodes in of the same size or standard as the nodes that you've already got. So you may have different requirements, whether that be you're looking for more storage capacity, or you may just be looking for some more compute power. Then you can basically add in nodes that suit your requirements rather than actually shoehorn in something that is not really the right fit for you. Centralized control is really key. So it's very much a single pane of glass management, application and policy deployment, all done through the one GUI, and a one-click upgrade management key as well built into there. So again, making it very simple for organizations to implement, manage, and run their environment without having to spend hours and hours actually managing that infrastructure. And on the right-hand side at the bottom, affordability, which is key to everybody. So all the hypervisor licenses and the software licenses are built into the appliance when you buy it. So again, and all the features that are available from Scale are available to anybody who buys a Scale appliance. To that end, as and when we bring newer features out, as long as customers are on support with Scale, then they will have the ability to actually use those features as and when they become available. So from our point of view, we're offering a complete stack, and over a 3 or a 5 year period, we give you a very good TCO on that. So again, the customers that you're talking to I think will be really interested in listening to this story. As an organization, we only sell through the channel, so we don't sell direct. So we're keen to work with you guys to actually provide more revenue in your pocket moving forward. So just looking at where the Scale proposition can actually be used, you can use it as a central data hub if you want to, as a backup node or a DR cluster. If you've got remote locations, then again, easy to implement a Scale solution, whether that be a single node solution or whether that be a cluster. You can have a hybrid cloud if you want to, you can either use our DR as a service up to the Google Cloud, or you could use one of your backup software partners, whether that be Acronis or Veeam, to put that into the public cloud for long-term retention of data. Or you can even connect a NAS box if you want to move that data off again for long-term retention. And this is all controlled by one single pane of glass GUI, which is very easy to use. And we'll show you that later on when Ian does a demonstration. So this is the family of products within the portfolio. As I say, I'm sure we'll have a solution that would fit any of your customer needs. We start off on the left-hand side with our HE150, which is built on the Intel NUC technology. Very small A5 size appliance, can be fitted into any kind of environment, so you don't necessarily need a data center or special cooling or power for this. However, you can run some quite powerful applications on these machines, and the demo that we'll be using today is actually built on this NUC technology. So very versatile, very low cost from a point of view of actually implementing high availability cluster, and people who use it tend to love it. If we move up to the HE500, sorry, then we use this quite a lot in our edge technology. So we've got quite a lot of edge customers where they have lots and lots of remote sites. So 1U, different configurations within there, both from a RAM and also from a storage point of view. Then our mid-range box is the HC1200 range, which again is probably our most popular appliance within the model range. We've also introduced an all NVMe range of solutions, which again for customers who are looking for really a lot of throughput, very low latency, then this will be a perfect box. And this can be scaled up quite high as well. So again, lots of different options built into that. If we move up to the high end, then we've got our HC5000 range, which again, when clustered together, you can get up to a couple of petabytes of storage capacity within the environment. So again, very flexible solution range. I'm sure we can fit into most of your customers' requirements with anything from scale. And then on the right hand side, we've got this Cloud Unity, which is our DR as a service proposition. So again, if people are looking for some kind of hybrid cloud, then we can facilitate that as well. That was a very brief overview of who Scale are, what we can provide you as partners and help you win more business. What I'd like to do now is introduce Ian Smith, who, as I say, is our Senior Director of Sales Engineering, and he'll go through a very brief demo, but it's really just to give you an insight as to how easy it is to actually use the solution and how easy it is to implement it for your customers. So with that, I'll hand over to Ian.
Great, thanks, Gary. Can you hear me okay for a start?
Yeah. Excellent,
okay. And can you see my desktop okay as well?
Yeah.
There we go. 2 out of 2 is not bad. Great, thanks, Gary. That's a lot of good information there. So you can see the cluster management view here on screen now, actually, and as Gary mentioned, this is based on a 3-node HE150 cluster. But regardless of the hardware options that you've just seen there, whether it's the HE150, 32 or 5250 hardware platform, the management interface, as you see on screen here, is identical. And also the configuration process as well is pretty much the same. To get to this point where we're logging into the management view, it's a very straightforward process. Gary's talked a lot about simplicity throughout. Setting up the cluster again, for me, I think it's simpler than setting up my home broadband router, for example. 2 IP addresses are required per node, and you can see one of the IP addresses per node here in the head-up display. This is the management or LAN IP address of the node. Once you've configured that information on each node in the cluster, then you can initialize the cluster itself. That takes about 5 or 10 minutes, depending on the number of nodes, storage, and so on. And so, as everyone's heard me mention many times before, I use cups of tea to measure most things in life, and in the time it takes me to drink half a cup of tea is how long it takes for the cluster to initialize. So a very simple setup process. Also, it's repeatable as well. You know exactly how long it's going to take to set up. And when it actually does go through that initialization process, it will check networking as well, make sure that it can see the gateway and things like that. So we'll do some sort of pre-installation checks before initializing as well, also limiting the opportunity for misconfiguration. And then once you've initialized the cluster, you can log into any node in the cluster actually. So I've logged into node 1, but I could have just as easily logged into node 2 or node 3. We don't have the concept of a single management server. So building on that mantra around high availability, you can log into any node and manage the cluster as a whole. So again, no single point of failure from a management point of view. And as this is delivered as an appliance as well, that also means that you don't then have to then pre-configure or configure your management server or environment either. So again, all you need to do to access any of the management features is to have an initialized cluster. And in the head-up display here, we've just talked through some of the key components. We have the gas gauges at the very top here. This gives you cluster-wide information, metrics, CPU, RAM, disk, IOPS latency. But probably most importantly, the top right here, this is where we actually display information on the health of the cluster. And again, we've also tried to make this as simple as possible. So when you log into the cluster itself, you understand exactly what's going on. Is the cluster healthy or not? And as luck would have it as well, we have an update available. Normally don't have an update available to show in the interface actually, but update management as well is a key part of that. I'll come to that in a few moments. But the picture we're trying to paint is as soon as you log in, you understand what's going on, is the cluster healthy, and what's running where. And further down in the head-up display where you can see the node overview, you can see what's memory resident on a particular node. And so I've got my file server running on node 1, for example, and I've got my backup appliance running on node 3. So it's very easy to see what's running where. Just to make the point though that, and again, we've covered this in part, but we have all the key features you'd expect with a highly available virtual environment. So no single point of failure. Talked about that just a few moments ago as far as the management's concerned. We still have all the benefits of shared storage or a SAN, but without any of the complexity and overhead. And so we've covered this a little bit, but the storage is actually built into each node. Each node has compute and storage resource. Hypercore then presents that local storage out as one contiguous block of storage, which is available for all of the virtual machines running in the environment. We have key features within the storage platform around data protection. So we stripe and mirror the data across drives and nodes in a cluster. Again, that means that we can withstand multiple drive failures in the case of a multi-drive system, or a node going offline. For example, if node 2 failed, then the system would manage that process automatically. It would then move the VMs that are running on node 2 onto the remaining nodes in the cluster. That's all automatic. And probably the most important feature actually is what happens when you bring that resource back online. And again, we manage the reintroduction of all of those resources back into the cluster, make sure everything's consistent, get it all up and running again. And also expanding the cluster as well is very simple. Same process as the initialization, setup, configure the IP address on the new node, add it to the cluster, single command, 5 or 10 minutes, the interface will update. And in this case, you'd see a 4th node appear, or a 5th node for that matter. And then the resource will be ready to be used by the cluster. There's nothing for you to do. There's no reconfiguration. And I won't go into sort of lengthy detail, but I'll give you a quick walkthrough of the control center and see here that we've got some basic information, one-time configuration to complete, register the cluster. I also happen to have mine configured in my local AD environment. I don't have email alerts set up, but typically you would do in a production environment. So not only would you get a visual indication when you log in, but also you would get an email alert or update telling you about a change in the health of the cluster as well. So again, trying to make it as simple as possible to keep on top of the health of the cluster. And talking about update management, as I have an update as well, then updates are automatically presented in the interface. We won't apply them or install them without your approval. In the case of a cluster, it's a single click upgrade. We could actually upgrade the entire stack, so you don't have to figure out do I upgrade the storage element before upgrading the management or the hypervisor component? We manage the entire upgrade process end to end. And also we manage the process of migrating VMs off of a node as well. So it's a completely non-disruptive rolling upgrade. So again, no downtime. You can apply this whilst in production. There's no impact to your access to data, for example. So a key component of that. And also from a remote support point of view, we talked about the remote support being a key part of the platform. NPS score up at sort of 91 plus there. Remote support is very simple. Simply get in touch with our support team 24/7. They'll give you a support code, pop it into the interface, hit open connection, and that will then open an outbound SSH tunnel to our support team. It means that we can provide support very quickly and cleanly without having to mess around with Zoom or WebEx sessions and so on to provide support. So again, trying to minimize the overhead from an administrator's point of view and keep that to an absolute minimum. Other key features built into the platform, data protection is inbuilt. You can actually schedule your own data protection regime. So you can actually define your own schedules. I go down as low as every 5 minutes if I want to, or I can push that out to say be a monthly copy of the data or a copy of the VM. Also, you can set your retention policy. And if you have a remote location or remote cluster or single node system, you can also set a different retention policy as well. So again, that's quite useful for DR or long-term archive. The remote cluster view as well, and this is sort of a misnomer. We say remote cluster, but I've just mentioned this means a scale appliance, whether that be a single node system or a cluster. And in this case, this is a remote cluster that I have locally as well. And if I just walk through creating a VM, I'm going to create Gary a VM here. I'm going to create a domain controller for him. You can see that I've done this a few times for Gary before. In fact, there you go. It does help if you can type, by the way. We make it simple, but we still don't guard against being able to type or not. So there you go. I'll just go back and that is Gary's domain controller there. I'm just configuring that so you can see there's Gary's domain controller just appeared there. I can actually then add Gary into his own group though. So let me just do that so I can then just focus on Gary's VM. Again, I'm just going to change the filter view there. So there we have Gary's VM in view. I'm going to apply the data protection schedule that we just looked at a few moments ago. I'm going to set up replication in DR as well. So I'm just going to set that up for Gary's VM. Excuse me. And then at that point, we're ready to go. We can simply spin the VM up. When we spin a VM up, we look at about 1,500 conditions across the cluster. We then will start the VM up on what we consider to be the best node or the most appropriate node at that point in time. So again, we're always monitoring the system in the back end for CPU network utilization. But we do have the ability to live migrate as you'd expect. I mentioned earlier on that we have all the features you'd expect with a highly available virtual environment with shared storage. So you can still live migrate VMs between nodes, place them manually. You could also actually set rules up as well about where a VM runs as well. That certainly can be helpful for licensing and so on. And I think that that's a few features I'm just going to touch upon really is how easy it is to recover data from a snapshot or data protection schedule. You can see that I've only got the single snapshot here, and there isn't any data associated with it as yet, but you'll get the idea that to clone a system or to access it, it's a simple case of just going to the point in time you want to access, hit clone, and that will then create a copy of that VM. Or I can simply just mount a virtual disk from a snapshot and either mount that to the same system or mount it to another VM. So I give you that file-like level recovery built into the platform. And again, you might say, so what, as far as cloning is concerned, because there isn't any data. That that would only take a few seconds, anyways. But I'm just going to prove the point here. I'm just going to actually use a template that I've already got pre-built here. I'll pop that into. So I'm just set this up as Gary's second domain controller. Pop that into the Gary group straight off this time, hit clone, and then within a few seconds, there now, appear in the Gary group there. By the time I've got up here, then you can see that's already ready to go. And this is a pre-sys prepped image. Okay, so so that's a quick overview of the platform and some of the key features. I don't know if any questions have come in, Gary, or anybody else.
Steve, has any
On the line.
questions come in at all?
I've got, yeah, I can see one. We're going to do a couple at the end as well.
Okay.
I've got just quickly, someone's got a Lumen VMware renewal for a school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that enough to set up a call, or are there other considerations that you'd recommend, Ian, or something other, and especially for, I guess, other people listening as well? Obviously, we've mentioned about virtualization renewals as a trigger point.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly start that conversation. Understand your environment, what the requirements are. We're quite careful about sizing, by the way, and also I'm not anyway that interested in hardware specifications up front. I want to understand your environment, your workload requirements. We typically run through some analytics in your current environment, and again, we help you with that process. It's very simple, straightforward, but as ever, good information up front always helps. And then we can then help propose, one or two options based on your requirements. And that's really around the different types of hardware profile, from a storage footprint point of view, but also from performance perspective as well. I didn't really touch upon it. And in fact, this is a single drive all NVMe system, which is the HE150's configuration, but we do have hybrid nodes as well. So we have all auto tiering built into the platform as well. So if we do have nodes that have multiple tiers, then we can then make sure that we size that properly based on the investigation that we do up front. And also one of the key features I just forgot to mention as well is we have node level DG built in as well to the storage stack.
Great, okay. Thanks, Ian.
But yes, we're more than happy to dive in. Again, just talk through more detail. We didn't cover off migration and backup. Self-evidently, I would say 99% of our customers migrate from some form of virtual environment onto our platform, whether that be VMware or Hyper-V or others. So we have very good tools to allow you to migrate onto the platform and actually offer the platform as well if you needed to. And also from a backup point of view as well, any backup software that has good engagements in guest agent support will work with our platform. We also partner very closely with Acronis, which you may remember from one of the previous slides. Acronis actually integrates directly into our API, provides agentless data backup and recovery as well.
Brilliant. Okay, so one of the questions as well that has come in is there a training portal? Which is quite good timing for this slide in particular. So yes, you do need to register to be a partner for Scale, like all of our other resellers, but more than anything, I'd encourage you to do that specifically for the portal and all the training. Excuse me, the training collateral on the Scale website. It's also very good for case studies as well. I know we referenced Tech Validate, but some more in-depth case studies on the Scale website across all the verticals we discussed. So yeah, if you can get yourself across to the website, if you're not a partner, if you are, and you've got pre-sales team, there's technical training on offer, you can become a certified technical person for Scale in order to go and sell that. And they're also the same for sales as well. If you've got a sales team and you'd like to go and get a certification on to understand the product a little bit better, a little bit more in depth, then head over to the website and register.
And also, Steve, there are lots of there's lots of literature on the portal for accredited partners. So again, if you're looking for more information on data sheets, if you're looking for some sales help or marketing help, then it's abundant with information that you can co-brand as well. So again, certified partners, you can co-brand the information and send that out to your customers. We want to make it as easy as possible for you as an organization to go out and win new business.
Yeah, brilliant. And also as well, just another thing, there's no minimum requirements, is there, Gary, in terms of...
No, I mean, the signing up as a partner is more of a form of adhering to the NDA. So we don't have any kind of fulfillment criteria that you need to sell so many clusters within 6 months or 12 months. So it's really just, we're here to help you, but obviously we need that accreditation of you as a partner, so that we can go out and support you in everything that you're doing within the education vertical.
Brilliant. And we've got a question here around deal registration.
Yeah, so we have a deal registration program in place already. So again, as I say, we don't sell directly, so we're not going to go in and try and oust you out of any deal. We're there to support you. But also what we don't want is, if you're going to put the effort in and actually register deals with us, we want to make sure that you're fully supported. So, and any partner that registers a deal, the deal registration lasts for initial 6 months. However, we do realize that with some opportunities, those opportunities take a bit longer than 6 months, so we can extend them if needs be. But what the main point of that is that if any other partner tries to come in at the last minute just to try and undercut you, then you are protected from a margin point of view. So we offer 28% discount to organizations. The maximum discount we would offer to a non-registered reseller will be 5%. So again, you should be covered to actually make some decent margin, even if someone does try and come in and undercut you at the last minute.
Will Scale allow me to install the solution?
So Steve mentioned that we have a training portal within the partner portal. So customers can actually there are different training levels within the portal that you can actually register for. You can train to become a certified installer for Scale, which means that you can actually then generate the revenue yourself for part of the install. There is a cost to that. However, we've got some new offers coming available as of the 1st of July. One of those offers is that we sell not for resale kits. So you could buy something like a HE 150 nut cluster, which is at a significant discount to what you would normally buy at that. And that is for demo purposes. But if you go ahead and buy that, we will actually offer free certified installation training for some of your technical guys, which again means that not only can you go out and demo the kit, but then you can start generating some revenue from actually installing it as well, as and when you win business.
Brilliant.
But more than happy to speak to any of the partners around that.
Great. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for attending the webinar. As you can see, there's a prize draw later today, which we'll announce on LinkedIn. And if there's any issues with anyone with that happening, let us know. Starbucks vouchers will be on their way around. I think the main takeaways are we're looking for conversations with you and your customers. We're interested in the workload and the application, to see where Scale can help rather than hardware specifications. And I guess some trigger points will be some looming virtualization renewals costs, legacy hardware, complex infrastructure, and Scale can help solve those problems by lowering the total consumption. It's easy to manage, it's simple. So yeah, we've had some great success within education, as Gary demonstrated, and we welcome your feedback and some calls. So please do get in touch. That is all for today. Thank you for joining, and we will speak to you soon.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Take care. Bye-bye.